there's the age-old saying of garbage in, garbage out, and I think it is like magnified massively when you come to AI, because AI is meant to be giving you autonomous answers that it's actually can interpret and think. But if you're giving it garbage, it's the stuff it's going to recommend is going to be even worse than a human looking at a screen of data and trying to interpret it.
All right, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the RevAmp podcast. I'm joined today by Daryn Smith, CEO of Hubble Digital. I'm really excited to chat about really interesting data that you all had uncovered in a recent report. But before we do that, maybe you can give a little background about yourself, what you're doing, how you came to start this, Hubble Digital, and what you all do there.
Great. Good to be on the show, Mark. So as you said, my name's Daryn. I'm mostly based in Cape Town, South Africa, but travel all over the world. That's because Hubble is a global organization. We HubSpot's Global Partner of the Year, and we work with their biggest customers. Those. Kind of stock photography with the different clocks on the wall where you see Paris, London, New York, and so on. Like, those are the type of customers we work with, customers that would have those type of clocks in their offices. So I do a huge amount of travel. One of the reasons I'm based in Cape Town is because I'm an avid surfer. However, with all the travel I've done, I had to switch to running, so I do a whole lot more running nowadays than surfing. The Hubble's came together in 2012, although the brand only formed in 2020. Been in that HubSpot CRM ecospace all that time. Before that, I was in telecoms, in marketing. Rolled out a Siebel implementation in kind of 2009 for a huge organization. So, being in this kind of CRM space, revenue data for quite a few decades now.
Yeah, and having been around for a while, you've obviously seen several different kind of waves of change, right? And I don't think anyone can deny that we are currently in the midst of a very big one. As a surfer, I guess the wave metaphor really works for you. But when you're in it, right, it's very hard to fully grasp the scale of what's happening, right? You have to kind of go with the flow and kind of feel your way through it, but no one really can fully grasp the size and the scale of it. But I think, we've been in it for a while, and a few things are obviously becoming very clear. One of them is, AI is completely changing the way everybody is doing everything. There was sometime like 2-ish years ago when ChatGPT kind of first hit the waves, hit the market. It really changed everything, but there was kind of this initial wave of, euphoria and maybe, kind of overpromise and underdeliver. But I think that the expectation and the reality are starting to kind of intersect now, and the rubber's meeting the road. But you all at Hubble did this really interesting report on companies' readiness for AI, and I think it really clarified where people stand in terms of kind of being ready to operationalize AI in the way that it needs to. So maybe if you give a little background on kind of what the impetus for doing this research, and kind of high level what you all found.
Yeah, sure. And the interesting introduction you gave there. I mean, like, if I look at my kind of time in work and career, I think it started out when Napster was a thing and people were illegally downloading music and so on. And like, as I said, rolling out desktop Siebel instances, and then going to this kind of software as a service kind of phase with Salesforce taking off hugely. And then I think we've gone through that kind of responsive mobile first stage where everyone said everything has to be on a mobile device. And now you're right, we're in this kind of AI stage. And what we saw is like you said, like ChatGPT launched, people started to use it a little bit, not very advanced users. But in many cases, they were quite disappointed with the results, like kind of disillusioned. And some of those people have never been back. I think there's a growth of momentum now. I think, if you look at people's using Google results and those kind of Google Gemini summaries at the beginning of results are giving people more confidence, but we still see those low levels of confidence. And we were wondering, like HubSpot's launched a bunch of AI agents, and we work within that HubSpot ecosystem. Our CTO has built some AI agents for us to use internally. We're wondering, like, where is the demand for this? Why are we not getting customers going, we need an AI agent, we need this AI solution, and so on. And so we started to dig a little bit, and what we found is in order to make a good AI solution, your data needs to that AI agent needs a source to learn from. You need to build that large language model, that LLM, and there's the age-old saying of garbage in, garbage out, and I think it is like magnified massively when you come to AI, because AI is meant to be giving you autonomous answers that it actually can interpret and think. But if you're giving it garbage, it's the stuff it's going to recommend is going to be even worse than a human looking at a screen of data and trying to interpret it. So what we saw is even the largest of companies has a data problem still to this day. I mean, the research we did showed that those companies that believe they do have unified data, it's actually only half of their data is 55% unified. I mean, that's a tiny amount of data. So I think what's holding back a lot of AI right now is data cleanliness, data readiness.
Yeah, and I think this is actually really is illuminating for me, because as the host of this podcast, I interview people, RevOps leaders all the time. And also, as a marketer, I live in that world as well. And the world of marketing, AI is, everywhere. Everyone's talking about the different use cases. But when I talk to RevOps folks, rarely do I hear kind of enthusiasm or really kind of, concrete ways in which it's being used. It almost seems like it's not. And it's been very, confusing for me as to why this isn't, why this is the case. And I think maybe this is really, makes a lot of sense. It really fits the puzzle for me, because I've been seeing this, disconnect. And so, the report basically said that, 60% of leaders are, have ambitions to utilize AI, where only less than 9% were fully ready from a data perspective. So there's this huge disconnect, right? And I think, I think you kind of talk about this illusion of AI and its impact. So kind of what's that kind of illusion referring to?
Well, what that is that when you look at a senior leadership team, a senior executive team or a board, if they ask for a report, they get it. They are often disconnected to how much work went into creating that report. It could have taken somebody 30 days to, like an entire month, basically, to dissect data, pull from different data sources, manually do a whole bunch of stuff to go, oh, this is our findings. And so the senior leadership is going, oh, we need AI. but it's actually the people on the ground that are seeing how difficult that would be to implement. And yeah, it's interesting you bring up kind of the RevOps side of things, because if you look at kind of a tech stack, you've got a CRM, you might have a CPQ, you might have a marketing automation platform. Now those are just your front office kind of tech stack. You might also have then some sort of customer support kind of piece of software. Maybe using like the Salesforce suite, and you got Sales Cloud, Marketing Cloud, Service Cloud. Maybe using the HubSpot suite, and you got all that, or the Microsoft Dynamics suite, and you have all of that. But there's still so much other data that is not in there. What about all your back office data, your accounting data, your ERP data? And there's a very small number of companies that are then putting everything into a data lake or a data warehouse like Snowflake or something like that. And then when you start looking at the AI solutions, so many of them have a limited limited sources that you can connect to. And I'm only mentioning structured data right now. Like the quantity of unstructured data from Zoom calls, from email threads and conversation, I'm like, it is absolutely massive. And yeah, there's literally under 9% of companies that have actually got everything together, everything feeding into a single data lake of sorts, and being able to really start building interesting AI solutions kind of from that. So yeah, there's this illusion of we're ready for AI, but yeah, the reality is many of are a year or more away.
Yeah, I mean, I think a year is pretty bullish. Just, depending on the company size, the inertia that goes on in a very large company, and the need to kind of change fundamentally, structurally, all these things, and put aside other projects. I think that there was, speaking to this illusion, I think, there are people that have gotten ahead of the market, right? So, for example, Salesforce, they completely shifted what the company is, right? They're an AI company now, supposedly, with AgentForce being this core product. And I think they've kind of trotted out some numbers. I don't remember exactly. I may be wrong about this, but it was something like, 5,000 companies are using it. Ooh, 5,000. But when you think about it, how many customers does Salesforce have? Like, I don't know, probably a million, a quarter million, whatever it is. 5,000 is a fraction of that. So it's really, when you look at it, the adoption is quite low. And so, again, I think it comes back to this story of, there's a reluctance to do it because they're, like you said, garbage in, garbage out. Now, what I find interesting is that one of the promises of AI has been that it will take that unstructured data and make it structured. And so if we have all of these disparate sources of unstructured data, and that is a problem, how come AI isn't the solution to that problem, or is it?
Look, I think it is the solution to it. But you need to be able to give the AI agents access to that data. And in many cases, like, in a secure way, you need to be careful about kind of different country laws. Like, what if the AI agents that you are building are sitting in North America, and there's a bunch of customer data that it needs to process that's sitting in Germany, as an example. Those are all the different types of things you need to consider. And then at the moment, if I don't know about you, but when I sign up, whether it's Notebook LLM or any one of these tools, it allows you to upload not infinite data sources. At some point, it says, I had a Claude agent built for like a personal or an extension of Daryn. Like, I was just trying to teach it to be like me, so it could respond to some of my email and so on. And eventually, it said, the training set has got too big, which I never expected it to say that. So yeah, I think that like AI is going to solve the unstructured data problem, but access to it is the problem. So what we're seeing at the moment is and you use AgentForce as an example. There is the agents that we are building for our customers are quite rudimentary. They're quite basic agents. They're definitely not autonomous. So they're helping somebody do their job, but they're not doing that job for them at all. And in many cases, we training them on the job. So you can kind of think of them as like interns in a way. One of the agents that we've built is to help sales managers who constantly get asked, "Do we have a case study for this particular use case?" And there's case study libraries out there, which you can, with drop-down menus, and you can filter by industry or by company size and so on. But with those type of systems, you need an exact match. And what we find is often what the sales rep is trying to find a use case for is something we've done or a company has done that is similar, but not exactly the same. So they can say, we have done that, something like this before. So in this case, every single time a sales rep asks the sales manager via Slack or Teams or whatever, like, do we have a customer that fits in this criteria? The response to that the sales manager gives is what then gets recorded for future use. But that's an AI agent, but it's getting trained on the job just because the data that foundational data doesn't exist.
Yeah. So, going from that to, let's say, this idealized vision of a company that is data ready for AI, what does that kind of look like? What is true data readiness for AI look like? And in the context of what Hubble does, how do you help companies get to that point?
Yeah, so I think first thing is to get all data into a single place. Now, for us at Hubble, that is often HubSpot, even that financial data and so on, because HubSpot has a bunch of pre-built tools, pre-built AI agents and so on, and increasingly giving us access to unstructured data. So the first thing is to get it into a place. Now, that doesn't have to be HubSpot. It could be a data lake. It could be Salesforce. It could be anywhere. But that's the first step. I think that the next second step, which I think is the part that is missing in most cases, is a change management kind of step. And the reason I say that is because the reason why data starts getting disconnected is because people stop using the systems and software and tools that the company has designated for them to use, and they find ways to bypass it because those tools are not user-friendly, they're not easy, and suddenly you had all your customer data in a CRM, and suddenly now you've got a spreadsheet with your gold customers are suddenly in a spreadsheet that everybody looks at. I mean, like that, you're immediately starting the problem that you've just solved. So you can go through, a 9-month exercise of unifying all your data, and then 9 months and one day you start undoing that. And so that change management process to drive adoption of the software that you have, that you're using, is a massive, is a really important step. And I think that's almost like an unseen cost that companies are having to realize, because they suddenly realize, hey, the software that we've decided to use, everybody hates. And no matter how much change management we do, they're still not going to use it. So this 12, 18, 24 months is get your data into one place. But in many cases, change the software that you're using. Otherwise, you will never get to the point of data readiness and AI readiness.
Yeah. And so, like you said, many companies have worked on creating what we call a single source of truth, but then have rogue actors within the company say, I don't really like that, because maybe it was a top-down decision. They didn't really kind of take into account actual user, use cases, user stories, whatever, internally. And so then they have this disparate data, even though they've kind of, worked on that centralization already. So how can companies like move on, deal with that, right? So it's a big problem, because if there are these artifacts of important data that, what do they call it? Tribal knowledge, right? So, everybody, people know that it's in that Google sheet, but the executives are still looking at Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever. So when you're working to, create this structured data to utilize in an AI context, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think you have to meet the users where they are, and I think that's actually one of the kind of best use cases for AI in itself. So yeah, we like I referenced earlier, we've been through different eras of interfaces. So we like, I started my kind of playing on computer like pre Windows 95. Actually, I think DOS prompts, instructing the computer with text, like writing to it. And then we got to a kind of GUI interface where we started to click on Windows and that type of thing, and that's only progressed and progressed and progressed. And one of the things with AI is I see it as a way, not only like a way that interprets data and makes recommendations and that type of thing, but a way for users to engage with the user interface. So they don't have to log on to HubSpot or log on to Salesforce. They could send a voice note to a number, and it interprets what that person has said and puts it in the correct place. So it's meeting the users where they are. That's the key thing from an adoption point of view. And like, I spoke about Google Gemini earlier and the search results. That's giving people the results without clicking through to a web page and reading that. So I think where we're going to see massive change as a result of AI is how people engage with technologies. You're going to take a salesperson. I just take like Deal Hub as an example. You're going to take a salesperson that's going to send a voice note to the CPQ and say, "Hey, I've just met this particular customer. I need you to build a quote." No need to answer a bunch of questions, because the AI knows, oh, it's that customer, it's this situation. I understand it, and it's going to output a quote. I think to drive that kind of adoption, and to actually get to the point where data doesn't become outdated, you actually have to think about user experience, and how AI can change user experience.
Yeah, it certainly has changed the interface, right? So we are all so used to these, and I also, my first interactions with computers with Microsoft DOS. My mom like installed with an actual floppy disk. These games on my PC. I remember I had a computer that like was 75 megahertz chip. Like, whoa, like that was super fast, right? And then we moved to this GUI interface. My mom used to tell me about how they use punch cards, and at least, with DOS we can actually type. And then in the SaaS world, we're all used to these dashboards and these, sidebars and menus that it's all very formulaic in a way. And then ChatGPT comes along and it's a blank screen with a chat, right? And, it's definitely bringing user behavior, dragging user expectations along. Do you think that we are in the near future going to get to a point where those dashboards and user interfaces are a thing of the past, and we're all going to be interacting with basically a chat interface?
I think that there's always going to be a need for visual representation of things, like, but more from a back office point of view. I think, like, just as, companies will invest massively in user research and look at things like Hotjar and see where, somebody has clicked and where they've hovered and that type of thing. Now, I think the same amount of effort is going to start going into, how people, send text messages, WhatsApp, voice notes, that type of thing, because that's going to be the new user interface. And what brands are going to have to start thinking about, and it's nothing new, it's been spoken about for a long time, is their brand voice. Like, who is it going to be? A female, a male, mature voice, young voice? Like, and I mean, we have a few customers that have developed kind of AI agents that engage with a voice and so on, and they've got user adoption. Companies or customers are using them. So I think it's like the demand is going to go in that direction, and we've seen increased use of Siri and Alexa and that type of thing. But yeah, I absolutely think that that's the direction we go in.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the expectation that this happens quickly with larger companies may have been a little too bullish. I like we talked about, there's so much risk here. And when you are using AI, there's a point where it's not really possible to know exactly what it's doing or why it made a certain decision. And I think as long as that, even it's a small sliver of error exists, and there always is, right? If you run a prompt, even if it's 95% of the time is great, there's 5% where it's hallucinating or whatever. But leaving that without a human kind of analyzing it is huge. The bigger the company, the bigger the risk, right? And, obviously data is one of the guardrails that ensures that things are correct. But in order to ensure that, there needs to be some sort of data governance, right? So, how would data governance play in this AI readiness, project that people need to go through?
Governance. Well, let me put it this way. One of the things that we're seeing at the moment is a proliferation of point solutions. And we over the last 2 years, where there was fear of recession and all that type of thing, there was a lot of cost-cutting exercises that companies were doing, cost consolidation exercises, and putting everything into a single platform. And then with all these amazing, cool AI tools, and with the benefit of a credit card, you have employees signing up for point solutions that nobody knows about. The IT department doesn't know about. There's data going everywhere. So, I think with the governance issue is kind of, I suppose, also magnified at the moment because there's so many point solutions. But it's not a new problem. And the other problem is so many of these solutions are so easy to set up that individuals with no IT background, no data architecture background, are just setting these things up, and as they do so, they dig in a deeper and deeper and deeper hole that makes it actually more difficult in the end to get to a true AI kind of solution. So it's I'm one for liking to break the rules, but in the current situation, companies actually have to say, stop. Like, we need to centralize and consolidate systems. We need IT to decide how we're going to architect and store the data, how data is going to be accessed, what's the security permissioning, the GDPR rules, all those type of things with this data. So effectively, we need well, one of the other things that I've been saying recently is HR have being there to manage employees, rogue employees, good employees, retain, find employees. And we actually, with AI, we're giving a job, almost an HR job, to IT, because they are having to manage AI agents who are almost like employees. And they really do need to step up and police these AI agents. And maybe it's cliched, but IT people aren't the best at managing individuals, and now we ask them to come with the skill to make sure everything is governed and uniform and consolidated and so on.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. IT folks generally are not customer facing, and yet these agents often are. And if it's their job to ensure that those agents are representative of the company's brand voice in a way that the company wants, yet it is not in their wheelhouse to do that, it's, it misaligned responsibilities and skills. So I think we talked a lot about the risks and the problems. Let's talk a little bit about how companies can become AI ready, how they can start working today to change the way they think and operate in order to kind of get on the road to being in a place where AI can really fundamentally change their operations.
Sure. So I'm like the key thing to think and to consider is the AI leaders of tomorrow are focusing their time now on preparing, and a lot of that preparing I've spoken about is around getting your data into the correct format and getting your foundational systems that you use in selecting them wisely. So what can companies do right now? Like, I would start with an audit. Like looking at what are you using already? We see so much overlap between systems when we are doing audits that our customers aren't even aware. We find all these point solutions that people have signed up for. We find millions of spreadsheets. Sometimes we actually find a data lake, and we're like, well, did nobody know that this even existed? But yeah, start with that audit, and then don't only audit from an internal perspective, but looking at from a customer journey point of view, like, what journeys are you wanting to design for your customers, and how do you think those journeys are going to evolve, from a user interface perspective over time? You're right. There's no flick of a switch and tomorrow everybody's going to be sending you voice notes instead of going and clicking on your kind of e-commerce order store. But that time may come. So yeah, start with that audit. Focus on getting ready now, and so that you can embrace AI in the next 12, 18, 24 months, rather than in 12, 18, 24 months still going, we're not AI ready.
Yeah. And, you talked about the HubSpot ecosystem, which you guys are very active in, and we as Deal Hub are as well. And you mentioned that you use often HubSpot as this single source of truth for that data. How do you think HubSpot is positioned for this transition which we're in, maybe even compared to the other CRM ecosystems out there? How do you think their approach is towards AI as opposed to some of the other approaches out there?
Sure. So I think you mentioned AgentForce earlier. AgentForce has a pricing page. It's got an entire sales team. It's, as you say, where Salesforce is putting all their focus. And then in the last 3 months, there was all the disruption, and you look at the stock prices and so on when DeepSeek launched. And DeepSeek are going, hey, it's not going to cost this amount to do all of this amazing stuff. And so the reason I preface what I'm going to say with that is because you look at HubSpot and their AI interfaces are being built in a way that it's into their existing pricing model. There's no additional charge. And it's actually difficult not to use it because it's so deeply built into the user interfaces. And so I think they've got they are uniquely positioned because many of their competitors are seeing this as an extra SKU, an extra way to generate revenue, where HubSpot's seeing it as a new way to serve their existing customers. And I'll go back to like what I said earlier about like the kind of evolution of user interfaces, right? So like the fact that you're going to start sending voice notes to an AI agent instead of going into a CRM and changing kind of settings is where it's going. And if I were to tell you every single time that you loaded your CNN or BBC to read the news, you were going to get charged $2. Like it's bizarre. Like it's just a different way of engaging, the new way of engaging. So I think they're very uniquely positioned to win. I think they've made some really interesting acquisitions. Most recently, framed.ai, which is going to enable all that unstructured data that sits within HubSpot, all the call logs, all the support tickets, and so on. And then they've got some pre-built agents, and then an agent builder to build custom agents. And then when you look at the parts of HubSpot, the CRM is slowly but surely being degrouped from the marketing enablement tools, the sales enablement tools, the service enablement tools, which means that CRM can be that kind of customer data platform where you store all of your data. And you don't even have to use the marketing, sales, or service enablement tools if you don't want to. You can just store your data in that particular kind of database. So all in all, like, and I know that my blood obviously bleeds orange. So it's but I do believe that they are positioned very well compared to competitors.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. Let's call it the blue bloods, as it were. The pricing model of AgentForce, as far as I understood, was $2 per interaction, whatever that means, which is at scale. If you have a bunch of SDRs interacting like that, that cost is humongous and never quite made sense to me. That's a conversation for an entirely other day. But as we wrap things up here, Daryn, is there anything that we didn't cover yet that you think is important to include here before we wrap up?
Yeah, look, I think when it comes to AI, companies need to accept that there will be tech debt. In many other situations, CTOs, CIOs try and avoid tech debt. But in the current space that we're in now, if you are trying to avoid tech debt, that means that you're not trying anything, and that means you're going to fall behind. So my kind of words of encouragement is embrace tech debt right now. And if you're not, then you should be worried.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anyone thinks that they don't have tech debt, then they're living in a fantasy world, because there is tech debt everywhere. All right, Daryn, this was a phenomenal conversation. I really appreciate it. Before we end, you can go ahead and tell folks at home how they can maybe learn a little bit more about you and Hubble, and where they can maybe read a little bit more.
Sure. So you can go to our website, Hubble, that's with a single B, .com. For me, best to get me on LinkedIn. That's my platform of choice. I'm very active there. So connect to me, Daryn Smith, on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to a follow-up conversation sometime in the near future to see how all this plays out.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark.